donors that are already funding us. And weaknesses, I don't have a fundraiser on staff. It could be something like that. Or we haven't done any prospect research. We haven't researched donors, etc. Then the opportunities and threats are more external. Like there's less funding coming in for my program. And I can tell you, we were in Bhutan working with a bunch of NGOs there. And Bhutan, a small country in the Himalayas. And they had issues there because the donors were withdrawing from Bhutan. I know the Danes were closing their office. So that's actually that's a threat, of course. Donors could be pulling out, and that's not something you can control as an NGO, but that's something that you need to be aware of, and you need to plan for that. So then you have to find alternatives. For example, an opportunity could be that all of a sudden donors are very interested in your theme or your program, or that there are better opportunities in your country. For example, in Burma at the moment, it's opening up politically. NGOs that were never allowed to work there can now slowly start coming in and working in Burma. And there's a lot of donor funding coming into Burma, so especially bilateral government funding. So those would be opportunities. If you map that out, then you kind of know what the gaps are that you need to fill. And the second step is
yeah, and just so everyone know what we're looking at on the screen, this is just a sample fundraising plan that we developed mostly just for the webinar purposes. So it's not anyone's real plan that we're looking at, but it is very similar and taken from plans that we've developed in the past.
Yeah, and then about fundraising goals, we want to set some goals, maybe increasing the number of donors to diversify our donor income. Or maybe increasing the number of the funding by 30%, our budget, our income, stuff like that. But just quite specific goals, I think, are usually good. And then the next step is, okay, we've done a few things. The first questions we answered were about prospect research. We've identified a long list of donors that are good for our programming. We've identified some of our strengths, weaknesses, you know, the opportunities and challenges out there. We've set some goals, and then what do we do with that? We have to translate that into an action plan and make people responsible for the different actions. So we could do that, for example, in as a calendar. In Q1 of 2013, we're going to review and finalize the fundraising plan. We're going to determine who in the organization will be the lead fundraiser, etc. Just very specific actions that you will take. And then behind that you see CEO, FC, program officer, or whatever that could be somebody's initial or a position. Somebody has to be responsible for each of these steps, at least take main responsibility. And then after that quarter, you can have a meeting and see, well, all of these things we were supposed to have done to fundraise successfully. Did we do them? And if not, what are the reasons? And who's responsible for making that happen? That's important because you want to translate it into action, similar to your program plan, your organizational program strategy. Now, if we go back very quickly to some of the questions that were asked, for example, about, there was a question about, is the strategy, the components of a strategy, are they very different depending on the theme or the country in which you work? In general, no. The components will be the same. The content will be different, obviously. The donors that you identify for environment will be different than the donors that you identify for HIV/AIDS or health or what have you. But the overall outline will be quite similar, and a lot of steps in fundraising are similar across themes, across countries, across regions, because fundraising, having a monthly fundraising meeting in your organization, that doesn't matter where you work and what you work on. That's a good idea to move fundraising forward. Reaching out to new donors, no matter who you are and where you work, that's a good strategy, a good activity to try and be successful in fundraising. So the content will differ, and of course your SWOT analysis, your analysis of your gaps and your opportunities, etc., will be different. But in general, the components are quite similar. Now, and there's a question about fundraisers. Should we hire a fundraiser or should we hire a consultant? In general, we are consultants ourselves and they can be very helpful, but as much as you can do in-house within your own organization, you should do, because of course it saves money, and also you need to build your capacity to fundraise. Megan, please.
Yeah, I know, Eric. We had a lot of questions from people who are from smaller NGOs, and they wanted to know what if they don't have the capacity or the time to do this? Are there any workarounds or address some of the challenges?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because I think there are small organizations, and even we work with larger organizations that don't have any don't have a dedicated fundraiser, and in that case I would assign one person with the overall fundraising responsibility. It could be a program officer, it could be the CEO, could be the anybody in your organization. Even if it's an organization with only 3 or 4 people, I would still assign that responsibility to one specific person. And that person is not doesn't have to do everything, of course not. That person will just make sure that they coordinate. I also think it's important that everybody in the organization takes some responsibility. And as you look at the key steps here that I've outlined, these are just examples, but schedule monthly 1-hour fundraising meeting. That may be somebody else that schedules those meetings and prepares an agenda. And all the other steps, you can assign those responsibilities amongst the people within your organization. So not having a fundraiser is no excuse for not doing anything. And then about fundraisers, we have a question from Fiona. Can you hire a fundraiser who takes a percentage of funds raised as a fee? And we've had that question from several people actually. No, actually that is done from time to time, but in the United States and in some countries it would be unethical, and we as consultants, Megan and myself, we cannot take a commission, a finder's fee, or work no pay on a no pay, no cure basis. The reason for that is that opens up consultants to a lot of abuse, because imagine you're a small NGO desperate for funding and a fundraiser comes to you and says, I can fundraise for you, but 80% of what I fundraise I'm going to keep, and you'll get 20%. Well, you might think, well, at least I get something and I don't have to do anything for it. The fundraiser will do that. The consultant will do that for me. But it can create a lot of abuse, and that's what was seen in the United States, and they try and put a stop to that by making that, by not allowing that, because the consultant's motivation should be aligned with the motivation of both the donor, the funder, and the NGO, and the motivation is to help people, to help the environment. It has an altruistic, philanthropic motive, and the consultant should be there to support that. It should not just be about the money. So there are exceptions, there are consultants that work like that, but I would be very, very hesitant to contract such a consultant.
Yeah, and for more information on that, you can visit the Association of Fundraising Professionals. They have a page on ethics to find out more details on
it's a long discussion, because there are many fundraisers that consultants that don't agree, and it's still quite common in Europe. I'm of the opinion that there should just be a set fee planned for the work that a consultant does, and not on a commission basis. We're not consultants in fundraising are not selling a regular product. They're trying to help donors fund what they're interested in and what they care about, and commissions don't fit into that. But it's a long discussion. I don't think that's just our opinion. I would be hesitant to work like that.
Thanks. So then let's move on to...
Actually, one thing. We have Gulzira saying in Kazakhstan we have a foundation that fundraises, and then they ask up to 50% of the fundraised money from the family. Yeah, that's to me sounds like a very, very bad precedent, because how would you, people that fund that organization, how are you going to tell them as an NGO that 50% of that is going to a consultant. That money should be going to the beneficiaries as much as possible. Okay.
So we'll talk about this next section. Will all be about how do I network with donors. So again, we'll start this with a quick poll. And this is just in your own experience. When I meet a donor, what do? First thing, you meet somebody new, do you give them a proposal? Do you talk about your NGO? Do you discuss the problem you want to solve? Or do you ask questions about